initially, it was so healing. I felt like somebody had given me cocaine and speed and happy pills and everything. And I felt like I could run marathons and I had zero pain in my body, self. And then it goes from, heaven to hell. And of course, also I did so many courses on vegan nutrition, so many diplomas, so many, oh, there's these tribes that all they eat is purple potatoes and you don't need anything and it supplies everything you need. And, there's all these vegan tribes out there apparently. The concept of I'm now allergic to the sun and I'm losing my eyesight is not good. This was towards the very end, by the way. They actually said that my hemoglobin was 2 and that I should be dead, let alone walking around. I'm 56 now, and I can see people that I knew when I was a lot younger into this journey, and now they're hitting 40. I can see they're the same. I can see what's happening to them is very, very similar that shouldn't happen. In order to be vegan, you need to poison yourself with supplements.
My guest today is Tanya. She was on various vegan diets, including the protocols leaning towards raw vegan diets. And after 12 years of following veganism, she had quit and switched to a whole food Mediterranean diet comprising fresh produce, grass fed animal products, and even some raw dairy. My guest has been following such a regimen for 2 years now, and today we're going to dig into her story. Hello, Tanya. Welcome.
Hello, Anastasia.
Let's start with our first question. What brought you to participate in the ex-vegan survey, and what is your personal incentive to share your story to people?
Okay. The main reason is because I believe that veganism goes against natural law, and because the vegan life is being promoted heavily with a very narrow lens of knowledge. It does not provide the solutions it claims for the planet, the animals, or our health, and it may even slightly create more problems.
I see. Thank you so much for that. We will probably discuss what you just said in more detail later as we go through our questions. But before we go on to your current understanding of things, what actually brought you to veganism initially?
Okay. I don't know how it fell into my lap. I just saw a video in 2010, Gary Yourofsky's best speech ever, and immediately I quit dairy, which was the only, non-vegan foods that I was eating at that time. But actually looking back in his video, he also heavily promoted all the vegan cheeseburgers, processed foods, which I didn't really go down that route. So I just quit the dairy, and from that moment on, I was vegan.
I see. So you used to be vegetarian before you became vegan, as far as I
Yeah.
understand, right?
Yes.
And so, how drastically did your diet change back then, moving from vegetarian to vegan? Was it just dairy products, or did you? I mean, what did you replace? Dairy
I think
products nutritionally.
I was never a big milk drinker. I mean, I used to have Gold Top when I was a child, which is Jersey cows, which is like pure cream, but they stopped doing that. So I never really had milk, but I would have cheese, butter, yogurt, that kind of thing, all full fat. And when I switched from vegetarian to vegan, I cut out those three things basically.
I see. Did you eat eggs before, or
Yes.
not much? For quite a bit of time, you were actually vegetarian and then vegan activist. And what was your message? And what were the activities that you participated in as part of your, I guess, some missionary work as vegetarian and vegan?
Okay. Well, when I was 16, I got involved with the ALF, which is the Animal Liberation Front. And I was probably the only vegetarian, and it was full of very, very angry vegans. But I liked what they were doing. And I think they even gave me a carob bar, and I thought, oh, that's disgusting. I couldn't possibly be a vegan at that time. It was funny. So yeah, I went on marches, demonstrations. I watched lots of films that they made. We released animals from captivity, and of course, when you're 16, You have this very black and white view of the world, this is good, this is bad, you don't see the middle point maybe so much. It's like, yeah, this is great, saving the world.
Mhm. So, so you were, I guess, pretty young when you started, right? It was, you said 16?
16 was when I joined the ALF, but I
Mm-hmm.
was from being vegetarian, yeah, 16 vegetarian.
Wow. So it was pretty, like, most of your adulthood, you were doing that pretty much, I guess, right?
Yeah, and it will come into the questions later because mostly in my childhood, I would never eat animal flesh.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we'll get into that. That's really weird. Since I was very little. Yeah.
I see. So I guess when you went vegan, how did people around you react to it? You already probably were surrounded by a community of like-minded people, right? So what was the reaction of others?
I come from dairy farmers and everything else. So all
Mm,
farmers, so everybody in my family was, uh, eating meats, but people were used to me. No one really said anything because no one really understood what vegan was. They'd never heard the word before. So I don't think they really understood what that actually meant to be vegan. It was like, oh, and it was almost like, oh, like, okay, that's great. But I don't think they fully understood.
mhm. Yeah, I can actually imagine how it probably was. I visited some. It was like a village somewhere in Mediterranean region last year, and I told them that I was vegan, and I basically visited a family, pretty traditional family there, local, and I said that I was vegan, and they were like, "Hmm, what's that?" And I explained, "You like vegetables, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." "Oh, it was hard to
No.
explain that." So what was the timeline of your vegan journey like? Because I see that you were on whole food vegan diet, then you were on high raw, and then you were on fruitarian. What order did those come
I'm not sure exactly the date, so it could be out by 6 months
approximate?
or whatever, but about 2010, 11, it was vegan whole food after watching the Gary video. And then it wasn't very long before it went into more like high raw food. And then it was just the last 3 years was fruitarian, which was like 2019, 2020 until I stopped.
Mm-hmm. And what made you want to experiment with different approaches? Why didn't you just stay, let's say, on whole food
Um,
vegan diet?
Okay, I've always, my whole life, I've been very interested in natural law, reading the ethics of natural law, and it's a huge passion of mine, more than probably animal rights, health, and environment, which is basically living in alignment with Mother Nature and doing what you're supposed to do. I guess people call that a species appropriate diet is the word. Okay, so I went along the kind of the spiritual thing. I read about the Essenes, I read Eret, Fry, Sheldon, all these books, which are more like natural hygienists, and they're all because I have a naturopathic background. So it was almost like, I see. So I'm already kind of like doing that, and this is what it's supposed to be, and this and that. And of course, I was only looking at one side of if you have a circle, I was really seeing 50% of the circle, but at the time I didn't realize that I had this kind of quite a blinkered view of looking at, and nothing is just it's just this. It's always something else. So anyway, sorry, that was the reason why I went as far as I did.
Mm-hmm. I see. No, that's actually similar to what I experienced probably because I mean I didn't like ordinary vegan diet. And when I tried raw vegan diet, it felt much better. And that's how I started realizing that there must be something to it. And I initially experimented and then I started researching what it stems from. And a lot of the things about natural hygiene actually resonated with me as well. So I totally understand you on that. And so, if you compare your experiences, those diets and on those diets, and in general, like understanding of those diets, Could you name like different pros and cons of each of them from your experience?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I think the vegan diet, I think it's very difficult to actually say in a way. I'd be more, I'd have more to say about the fruitarian diet probably than the vegan diet. The vegan diet, to me, I didn't really give it a lot of thought because it was basically, I mean, vegetarian, vegan. Yeah, I miss my cheese. I guess that was the negative thing. And I didn't really like any of I was never a big fan of everyone getting excited of going, oh, this is the new vegan cheese and it's great and da da da. And I'd be like going, I think it tastes horrible. And I just can't. I never went onto that journey of like, oh, it's so great, because no. And I think the health, possibly I saw some benefits from previously vegetarian to vegan. And I think that's just because I used to love my cakes with my
Mm.
butter. So I would be quite like into very rich, nourishing food. Like I'd make a big Victorian sandwich and I'd probably eat all of it. And I'd be, so I was probably eating less calorie dense food without the fats. So maybe, I don't know. I mean, fats are good. Well-being, yeah, I can't really notice a great deal of difference from vegetarian to vegan. I think the only thing that happened was probably, I don't know, I lost a load of weight, loads of it. And I suppose some people would say that's a positive, but I've come to see it now as not being a positive as
I
I'm
see.
getting older. I actually feel that we do actually need. There are times when having low weight, like below 40, is probably a very, very positive thing. As we're getting past 40, it's probably better to have a few extra pounds to be healthy because we need those fats for the hormones, to
Yeah,
keep the
yeah.
estrogen and the progesterone or whatever it is that is in our fat. So yeah, if I go on to just the fruitarian, that's more exciting for me than anything else. Initially, it was so healing. I felt like somebody had given me cocaine and speed and happy pills and everything, and I felt like I could run marathons, and I
Mhm.
had zero pain in my body, and I felt like superwoman, and it was so great, and I would talk really fast and I could just get so enthusiastic about fruit and I'd want to, it's very, very odd looking back on it now, but I was like, this is amazing. And but then of course you don't notice that it's like it's anabolic to catabolic, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Initially, it's anabolic, which means it's a detox and you're healing, and you're getting a lot of, because I'm more about, I believe in minerals and electrolytes rather than vitamins. I feel like we're an electrical, energetic being. So I think the fruitarian diet, short term, is super healing, but because it lacks the other side of that circle that I was talking about, you're only seeing 50% of it. So you start off anabolic, then you end up getting catabolic. So your body starts basically eating itself, and then it goes from, heaven to hell.
Hmm.
Yeah. So that's enough on that question, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I would be interested, yeah, we'll probably zoom in later on your fruitarian stage when, I mean, I guess you quit veganism after fruitarianism. So we'll zoom in on that. Um, but yeah, I totally understand that. I mean, it's always, like I remember I formulated once that a good diet is found in the intercept between supplying all the nutrients you need and then not supplying or supplying under the amount of toxins like different waste matter, something that your body struggles to process, then your body can possibly like tolerate. So you need to keep low toxic load, which means to avoid certain, I don't know, like advanced glycation end products or some acrylamides from food, right? Or some coloring processed foods. And at the same time, supply all the nutrients you need, which will be a full spectrum of essential nutrients. Pretty much, we cannot bypass that. We need them. So I hear you on that. And yeah, fruits for sure. I mean, There are books. I have a book in my library that is on raw diet. Professor Dinas wrote it. And I remember reading, I was under impression that fruits do supply all nutrients. If you eat like 2,500 calories a day worth of
Yeah.
fruits, they supply everything on books. But actually, regarding nutrition, you said that in the survey that you were meticulously tracking your nutrition, especially as like high raw and then fruitarian. Uh,
Yeah.
did did it correlate the fact that you were actually fulfilling your nutritional goals? Did it correlate with the practical real life outcomes in terms of being well nourished in your perception?
Um, from my from the limited amount of knowledge that I had at the time to what I've gained through, I guess, what they call it, walking the talk, I guess. Yeah, and initially there was a lot of things that I thought were fine. You know, if you're following 80-10-10, basically, I don't need any protein. Yeah, or whatever you're feeling. I don't need fats. I don't need hormones. I don't need any of that. Don't need cholesterol. Basically, I don't. And, and so all those things like that. So I think it gets. And of course, also I did so many courses on vegan nutrition, so many diplomas, so many, oh, there's these tribes that all they eat is purple potatoes and you don't need anything and it supplies everything you need. And, you know, there's all these vegan tribes out there apparently. I can't remember in the courses, but I haven't found them recently. But yeah, so that was the biggest problem is that it didn't actually supply everything.
I see. And yeah, in retrospect, yeah, I started analyzing that there were pitfalls. What happened towards the end of your veganism that made you start questioning this lifestyle, eventually like leading to you quitting it?
Okay, okay. So there was many things. First of all, it started off with my thyroid stopped working. Then I had flashing lights and kind of strange things going on with my eyes. And I went to see an eye doctor, and he said, I don't understand what it is, but you're going to lose your eyesight, which was very strange. I didn't, by the way. Then I had severe skin problems where my face would go like I'd been slapped, so it would go like bright red, super sensitive. So I went to the doctors, and he just said to me, Tanya, he says, you're just allergic to sunshine. And I just thought that's so odd. What do you mean I'm allergic to sunshine? Because I've got pictures of me and I'm very typical to people in my family. The sun, I go brown as a berry, you know, instantly. I tan very easily. In my youth, I used to tan very easily. So this whole concept of I'm now allergic to the sun and I'm losing my eyesight is not good. This was towards the very end, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
On the fruitarian diet towards the end, some teeth fell out. And then I had bone problems. I had problems regulating my body temperature. I had severe insomnia. I had like male pattern baldness, hair loss. My hair was very nervous and excitable. I had very low pulse, which went down. The lowest it went was 29, and then it kind of stayed at 45 for ages. Then I had Lanuga, and then one time because I actually even ran a vegan B&B for 8 years. And one of the time I was out doing loads of shopping because I was doing lots of raw vegan food preparation. I've just started to feel really odd, and I just said to myself, I don't think I'm going to make it. So I managed to get checked. They actually said that my hemoglobin was 2, and that I should be dead, let alone walking around. So I had a full blood transfusion, which I would never recommend to anybody. And of course, in the scary thing is once you're that entrenched into it, and you know you're in that environment, it's very all of those kind of problems, you put on a brave face. And I can see it in other vegans and other fruitarians. I can see people that I've known over 15 years, and I can see, because I was a lot older than a lot of these people. Um, I'm 56 now, and I can see people that I knew when I was a lot younger into this journey, and now they're hitting 40. I can see they're the same. I can see what's happening to them is very, very similar that shouldn't happen.
Okay,
And
well,
they
you were,
tell you that if you lose your hair or your teeth, it's detox and that you should just carry
yes,
on with it. And that is, I hate that now
yes,
because I want to scream at people and go, no, it isn't, eat something. Please don't do this. Why are you torturing yourself? The animals don't want you to do this. But it's very difficult because these are very, I don't know whether the people that get into this have come from a traumatic past or they're very, have a lot of empathy, or I don't think it's all because people are full of their ego and just interested in their health. I think it's a desire to be genuinely compassionate. So, it's hard. You don't want to hurt people's feelings, to say things out of it, you know what I mean? Going against it.
yeah. It's handful. I mean, while you were listing all that, I want to say like, stop, please don't tell me that there's more. It's such a,
Sorry.
it's it's such a, I just couldn't believe, and you kept going and going and going, and it just sounds so scary. I can't imagine how you felt. It's like, and you know what is interesting is that I literally have a friend right now. I mean, we stopped talking because after I quit veganism, but my friend listed to me all the symptoms that they have, and they believe that it's a detox. We met
Yeah,
online,
no,
so
I
through
know.
my previous my previous endeavors, and when I was talking about raw veganism, my raw vegan experiment, and they believe that it's a detox, and I just it's disheartening to be honest. But yeah, people need to come to that conclusion themselves, I guess. I mean, there's nothing you can do. I'm very happy that you made it out of it. It's it's a handful. I'm deeply like struck by like what you've had to go through. So um but then so you were observing all that and you said that it took you half a year to
Yeah,
actually come from thinking that something is wrong to quitting veganism.
yeah.
So why were you hesitating? What took you 6 months to understand or come to agreement with?
Oh, it was a lot of reasons, basically. It was the continuation of my natural law studies, and then it was reading lots of different books, like about the cholesterol myth, the diet of all the tribes, the bonobos, the apes, Weston Price, Sally Fallon, Stephanie Seneff, Ray Peat, Denise Minger, all of these people, which made me determine that our species appropriate diet should include some animal products. And then also, I stopped believing in vitamins and supplements because I studied how the vitamins are isolated and everything. And I came up to the conclusion that they must, not like the B12, the bacteria, or the D, which is, a hormone or whatever, but the other ones, I came to the conclusion that they act like toxins in the body. And if you understand the food matrix, food synergy, etc., it's like even if vitamin C actually existed in nature, it would have like they would find like 20 different things that are very similar as to vitamin C. And then you have to look at the enzymes, the cofactors, and everything else. It's like you cannot take vitamin C out of an orange and then put it into a pill. You would lose it, then becomes something else. It's not what exists in nature. And I'm very guilty. I hate to, because of the person that I am now and the knowledge that I have now, it feels kind of bad to put my hand up and say, yes, I went down that road and I had my little tray of like a, a medical patient. Oh yes, I need to take my zinc, I need to take this and this and this. And then when I came to realize that that was just another, they're all created by the same pharmaceutical companies. they're basically they you don't know how they work, because all these things they have receptors in the body, and they've
Mm.
actually been proven now that pregnant women, giving birth to children, when they take folic acid, which doesn't even exist in nature, causing autism and all these problems, and even the receptors for how iron works. We can have iron in meat, and then we can have the metal filings in a tablet because you're having problems with iron. And even things like iron and B12, they can't even properly test them in the blood. So the actual, the analysis that you can get is not always accurate. So you have to go back to nature again. And then even when you look at pleomorphism, biological transmutation, all of these things, it just makes you realize that we have this amazing magical body that should really not be going anywhere near anything out of a bottle or a tablet, and that we need to be just sticking to local, seasonal, fresh, species appropriate food. And if that means eating an animal, then, a lion's not going to survive on lettuce, my rabbits are not going to survive on steak. So,
Mhm.
yeah, that was the reason.
I see. So you were basically you were preparing the base for the transition. I mean, I guess when people transition to a vegan diet, it often takes a lot of research to assess how you're going to do this. You need to validate yourself. You need to come to peace with the idea, which means that you need to have both intuitive and rational understanding of what you're going to do. You need to come to agreement. So I guess it was more like learning period for you. It's understandable. And what you said about the vitamins, I've only researched vitamin B12 and vitamin D and K2 thoroughly, but I'm going to prepare a video on supplements for sure because I want to dig deeper into that. And I agree with you on the fact that it, it, I would say that supplements should be treated like medication. So,
I enrolled at the naturopathic school with Daniel Reuters. He was a top clinician, and he lectured in all of the major universities in Australia. And he teaches something which I believe in, which is basically terrain theory, which is the same as natural law. Natural law and terrain theory, we believe in pleomorphism and that kind of thing. They all go hand in hand. And he wrote the book, Can You Catch a Cold? And he proved, oh, he's amazing. And he's done a lot of work on all of this. A very intelligent man, amazing person. And I learned so much from him. But it wasn't that the fact that he just teaches, he actually will actually put it like this in front of your face. Will hold it up in front of your face and go, look. So you look and you go, oh my goodness, like he will show this is how they isolated and
mhm,
found vitamin C. And then he'll go through the whole stages of what they do. And he'll do the same with a virus or whatever it is. So he will tell you what these technicians are doing in the laboratory. And when
mhm,
you just take it for granted that they all know what they're doing, they're super smart, just leave it to them. But when you actually read the actual stages, step one is do this, step one is do this, whatever it is, and you think, no, that can't be. How can that be real? That is so stupid. How could I ever take a vitamin C tablet and put that in
mhm.
my body? And then when you look about how they're, all of them are like petrochemical based, and then he explained about the food matrix and all of this, and then I'm like, so for like 3 years, I have not taken a single supplement, anything, and I never would again. So that door is shut. I don't
Mhm.
get because I don't believe in it. So yeah, so that obviously then, if that is the case, then what that means is that in order to be vegan, you need to poison yourself with supplements.
It's a medicated diet. Yeah, no, it
Yeah.
is what it is. It's a diet based on medication or relies on medication. I think I heard in some channel somebody said that okay, if you eat standard American diet, then you need the blood pressure regulating pills.
Yeah.
It's a medicated diet. Vegan diet inevitably requires you to take some other pills. It's a medicated diet. So
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
can it be better? So I had this question that might make you feel emotional or something.
No.
If you were to encounter a vegan who comes to you and asks, I will be reading right now. I wrote a plot.
Yeah.
What did you try doing to remain vegan during that period? I've been vegan for over 20 years now, and I am the happiest and healthiest ever. People always tell me that I look at least 30 years younger than my age. You just did it wrong and are blaming veganism instead of your own mistakes and lack of understanding of nutrition. I cannot believe that the only thing you could think of was to engage in animal cruelty. Why did eating meat appear to be the only solution to you? Have you tried any supplements, meal replacement powders, increasing your protein intake, adaptogens, spirulina, chlorella, CMOS, blood work, nutritionist consultations, watching Dominion after all? So what would you answer to that?
Okay. I actually know lots of people that do look younger and are still vegan, but they're eating a lot. I understand about metabolism, and I know what they're doing because they're a little bit they're eating more, 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 more. So they're not the skinny vegans. And the other type, they tend to do better for longer, but they're still they will hit that wall because of the metabolism side of things, when you've got but anyway, get to your question. Sorry. Okay. So what I would say is that I first believe in Mother Nature and balance, and we need dark for light to exist and so on. And life, unfortunately, includes suffering. And modern or monocrop agriculture is a huge cause of suffering, unfortunately. And I tend to think about the micro and the macrocosm, which means, like, say, for instance, in my compost in the garden, the soil is basically very much alive and it's full of creatures running around, killing each other, eating each other, jumping over each other, laying eggs, doing whatever they're doing. And that's their own, like, little mini universe. And if you think about the bacteria on our skin and everything else, that's all eating each other and jumping around. So there's lots of little universes that we don't see. You can have a big universe like a cow, or you can have a tiny universe like a bacteria. They're all alive, and that is basically this is what's going on. So they eat each other, but the soil has no synthetic additives, supplements, or poisons, etc., added to it. It's just doing its thing. It's Mother Nature. It's carrying on. And that is us. We are that. And so
Mhm.
we can't change that. We can become something artificial. We can take the pills, but we are not then living in alignment with Mother Nature. And there is no food that exists without suffering, even a lettuce. And a short while ago, I was growing arugula in my garden, and my eyesight is quite bad. And I cut the leaves in and everything. And I don't tend to wash stuff, or I tend to just eat it from the garden because I'm quite like that. And then I realized that it was actually full of aphids when I was eating it. And at the question, I had to ask myself, did this mean I was still vegan because I was eating the aphids, or should I just kill them first? That's it, really. And then I would ask them why they actually want to be vegan. And then if they said something like, for my health, then I would try to give them, instead of the 50% view of the circle that vegans see. And that's what I saw when I did my little Google or looked at my books about veganism. I didn't see the 100. So I would say, if you want to, I can give you the 100, and you're just seeing the 50.
Oh, it would open a can of worms. But
Yeah.
I respect that stance, yeah.
And people have
Mm.
to do what they feel is right for them. I'm very much into intuitive eating and things like that. And also, the other thing as well is that although I'm not 100% convinced on geneticism, I am convinced on ancestral lineage. And, like, for instance, a person like myself, I have blue eyes, I have naturally dark hair, and even have a big nose or whatever. So I feel like I come from a cold climate, Northern European kind of country. And if you look into Northern European people and their ancestral diets are all about fats and proteins. They're not about eating a load of carb, vegetables, fruits, and whatnot, because they're a cold country and that's what their body is designed to eat. You can have people that live closer to the equator and they do a lot better, eating kind of fruit-based diets because it's to do with the temperature of how their ancestors lived. I mean, for instance, Northern Europeans, normally it snows in winter. So you're not going to be going out there getting loads of lettuce and whatnot and things
Mm.
and fruit and berries because it's going to be snow, it's going to be cold. And also you're going to have to maintain your body temperature to nourish your body. And the way to do that through a very severe cold winter is not going to be bananas and apples. You would not live. You wouldn't survive the winter. So that there is that aspect. And even like people that have come from, famine, people have like we have adaptations that we inherit from our ancestors, which can even, like, there was a guy, Williams, he wrote about all the different organs of the body. They vary, like there's 20 different size stomachs and shapes, gallbladders, everything. And we inherit that from our ancestors. So that's like some people, like my mother, for instance, she never smoked, but she always had weak lungs, asthma, pulmonary problems, or whatever it is. So everybody can have different levels of acid as well in their stomach. It varies slightly depending on your ancestors. So I don't believe that there is one ideal diet for everybody, but it's whatever your kin or your ancestors adapted to thrive their best on. And it's figuring that out intuitively that we've kind of lost, that sense of who am I? What do I need to nourish me?
Mm-hmm. Here, I hear one of the cognitive distortions in vegans. For example, they compare meat with smoking, right? They say that meat is harmful. So when you crave meat, it's identical to an alcoholic craving a bottle of vodka. So they defend they kind of like mix up the two things. They mix up essential nutrition and serious like chemical addictions to something that's man-made, something synthetic. Because like smoking, for example, I mean you're supposed to breathe air. You're not supposed to breathe in smoke, right? But they equate those things. So when they eat, for example, when they crave animal products, they buy that fake cheese, they buy that fake meat, some like figurines shaped as animal foods. To them, it's like, I don't know, sucking a lollipop instead of grabbing another cigarette. So they perceive it this way. And that's why it kind of breaks the intuitive eating strategy because you have different concept about animal products. And when you mentioned the genetics, actually, I just thought of several examples of that, right? So people, first of all, people up north, they rely on vitamin D. They need to have as much animal fat, as much dietary sources of vitamin D to survive through 9 months of no sun. That's one thing.
There's
And
D3
then,
sulfate naturally in cow's milk. That's how in dairy products you can actually get D3 sulfate, which is, I think that's the only product that in D3, not D2, but D3
mhm.
sulfate exists in dairy milk. So I think that's very interesting.
Yeah, so that is one of the things. And then what I learned was that some people actually vary in the amount of cholesterol that they can synthesize. That's
Yeah.
another thing. So depending on what your origin is, you may be a good or bad synthesizer of cholesterol. I had this question to you. Since you were a vegetarian before going vegan, after you have quit vegan diet, was it your first time eating certain animal products? Or did you have exposure to them growing up?
Um, Okay, as a child, I never wanted to eat animal flesh or fish, but everything else was okay. I just used to tell my mum, Mum, I don't want to eat animals. And I used to get anemia a lot,
Mm.
even when I was even 8 years old. And my mum would take me to the doctors, and he would tell her that she had to make me eat raw liver. So I always remember as a child, I mean, bless my mum now. At the time, I didn't think it was great, but looking back now, I'm very grateful that she had such a good doctor and she didn't shove pills down me or going to get my blood changed or anything else. It was just a very simple thing. Get your daughter to have some raw liver and then she'll be fine. And then my
Mm.
mum would shout at me and go, You've got to have it. And then I would cry and then it would be a bit of a drama, but I would eat it. And then obviously then I would be all right. So so
Mhm.
that was my only sort of experience of meat prior to all of this. Bless my
But
mother.
yeah, for sure. For sure. It's yeah, I'm also very grateful because like nowadays I feel like, actually there's even comparison over one generation.
Yeah.
Like my brother, for example, my younger brother already didn't have certain things growing up. But I had a bunch of liver, a bunch of different stuff. Like so people I feel like were a little bit more resourceful and the industry of food kind of developed so rapidly. We had only one obese child in the whole however many children. We had like 150 children per year in our school. So in my
Mhm.
school year, we had the one obese child. When my brother was in school, he already had like third of the class would have excess weight or obesity. So
And I
there,
have a theory about that. I think it's the fact that they have replaced everything out with a synthetic, like fats, for instance. The egg yolks, raw egg yolks, butter, full fat cream cheese or whatever it is now. Or when I was a child, we used to have a bottle of a small glass bottle of milk straight from the dairy farm that used to be
Mhm.
delivered to the school, and it would be our 15-minute break in the morning. We would all have one, and so we didn't have a problem with those, the fat soluble nutrition.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, a lot changed. Yeah, and it feels I don't know. I buy one ice cream. It's made based on um very good milk and sweetened with honey. And they have very cool slogan. They say that the future of food is in the past. I really
Oh, I
like it.
think that is amazing. We can't get raw milk here. The only milk I would ever have is raw. That's why I don't go anywhere near milk in itself because it's too toxic with the pasteurization and what they're giving the cows and this. So, yeah.
Yeah. So it's we have market is expanding towards that.
I
Feels
know it's
restful.
exciting. It's like on the crest of something amazing for health, for nature, and it's people like you as well that are driving this.
Yeah. Hopefully. Hopefully. So now, actually, on the liver subject too, I wanted to share something. In Russia, we actually had bars that were made of dried bull's blood. It was pretty
Wow.
heavy thing, but they sold it in the pharmacies and they were like for kids. They had like child
Wow.
picture on the back. So we had those desserts and they would put like pine nuts for flavor there. And then like squares that are you're supposed to like kind of like obey some dosage not to exceed the amount, but it was like a treatment for anemia for children, like pregnant women sometimes were buying it too.
That is amazing.
Yeah. And that was a dessert. When I tell it to my American friends, they're like, "Ugh, who eats that?" But it was legitimate delicious thing. And
Mhm.
you never obey the dosage, you just eat it as much as you want. So actually, yeah, my low ferritin started when I started being on more plant-based.
Yeah.
So when you ate your first animal products, what was the day like? Like after you quit veganism, what was happening? Like you woke up, you went to the store, you purchased something, some
Okay.
fruits. What were
Right.
you feeling, thinking?
Well, I've always given my dogs raw meat, organs, bones, and they are fed. They have raw fruit as well, so but that's the mostly they eat meat, bones, and they don't have anything cooked. So yeah, so they have it like that. So I always have had the meat products in the house. Even when I was vegan, I would still feed my, natural law, da da da. So anyway, I had bought the dogs some liver and hearts and things like this, some organs, and I had all these different organs laid out. And I was still, fruitarian then, or thinking about not being fruitarian. And I was feeling very weak and cold, and it was winter, and it was like, oh, and I put a slow cooker on because I'm always about slow and low. If it's anything cooked food, it's slow and low, whatever it is, so so I had already bought the liver for my dogs. Then I was like looking at it. Then I had a flashback of my mother going, you need to eat some liver, Tanya, because my mother has passed away. And I was thinking, yes, this is what she's trying to tell me. I need to eat some liver. And then I was thinking, you should. So anyway, I took hardly any of the dog's liver, and I just put some in the slow cooker with, vegetables or whatever it was I was doing for the evening. And then I had it and I enjoyed it. It reminded me of my childhood and my mum, and I was able to see my mum in a different light. I was able to see that memory as it was previously a bad memory of the liver. And then I was able to look back to my past and actually smile and say, thank you, Mum. And it became a nice memory for me.
Nice. That's a beautiful story. And so from that day onward, you started experimenting with other things, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah.
What was the progression of events then? And how quickly did you start feeling the recovery?
Recovery. Okay. Well, I wouldn't say. I think that from the knowledge that I've gained and everything, I don't think it's going to be a quick overnight recovery. I think, yeah, if you're 20, you can have a quick overnight recovery or whatever it is. But definitely, the first thing I noticed of not being vegan or vegetarian or anything else like that is that, you have the half moons on your nails.
Mm-hmm.
hmm Aha. I didn't have any, only on my thumb for most of my life of not eating animal products or whatever it is. And I was so surprised that the half moons on my nails, although they are small, I can see them. And I know that that is like a sign of health. And the other thing is my eye problem has not, because it was getting really, really bad. It was accelerating really, really fast. I'd lost two teeth when I was fruitarian, and the top set of teeth, all the teeth in the back of the top set of my teeth were all loose and painful, all the back ones. And obviously, you read Western Price, you have an opinion about what the teeth problem could be. Haha. So anyway, I didn't lose my teeth, put it that way. And
Mm-hmm.
it seemed very likely that I was going to. My hairdresser she cuts my hair like twice a year. She comes to the house. I'm not big into hairdressers. And she says to me, she says, Tanya, what have you done? And I said, what do you mean? What have I done? She said, well, she goes, your hair's really thick. You got loads of hair. What's going on? She said, I was always trying to get you to have short hair because it was always so thin around the temples and everything. And it looked so this. And she says, now, she said, look, you got lovely hair. It's really good.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going, oh, I said, well, I suppose I stopped being vegan. And she goes, oh, she goes, you're eating meat and that. And I said, yes. And she said, she goes, that'll be it. She goes, really shows a big difference in your hair. She goes, I can tell it's amazing. She goes, you can probably have long hair now. She goes, I'll let you. I thought, oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing is with the thyroid, it got to the point where I was on, I mean, basically, when I was fruitarian, I went down to 42 kilograms. Now I'm 55. Okay. So what it is that for some reason, for years and years, my thyroid, I had to take 200 micrograms, which is really high for somebody with very, very low weight, which is not, that's really not very good nutrition. And what's basically happening is that since I've introduced, animal products back into my diet, I am constantly hypothyroid. And the reason why is I tried to just get off the thyroid meds and I crashed because I think you have to do it slowly because your body's adjusted to functioning with that. And that's the only thing. So in the time that I've gone, I'm always hypothyroid because now I'm on 80 micrograms and I've gone down from 200, which
Hmm.
is huge. The goal is to come completely off of it, but I have to go through that process, which is every 3 or 4 months or whatever it is, get the test and then go from there. But that is a huge, huge change. So obviously I didn't go blind.
Hmm. Yeah,
And I'm
that's all
no longer
amazing.
sun sensitive. I don't have to panic about, you know, having sun sensitivity. I actually tan now, so that's nice.
That's an interesting one. I actually made the poll once on my channel, and a lot of people reported that when they were on plant leaning diets, even they were sun sensitive now and they switched to, I guess, some form of animal based diets or removed certain oils from their diet or certain vegetables from their diet. It's actually different for everyone. But they noticed that their sun sensitivity was completely gone, and they say that they can tend for like hours and hours and hours without burning even. Not just even sensitivity, it's they're no longer prone to burning,
The
which is
problem I
amazing.
had when I was ordinarily vegan is I was never one of these people that did well on like lentils, beans. I don't know, I'm not a Mexican or I didn't really like it wasn't my thing. I don't think
Mhm.
it suited my anatomy. So it's nice not to think about those things.
Yeah, so I guess the question is, you know how like vegan teachings they portray animals as inherently harmful, animal foods as inherently harmful. They're all
Yeah.
like, like fish. What do we know about fish from vegan teachings is that it's full of microplastics, parasites, heavy
Mhm.
metals. What we know about meat, it's cholesterol, hormones, antibiotics, whatever, parasites, every full spectrum, right? So for every milk is full with pus, antibiotics as well,
Yeah.
hormones. We know all of that. Do you have any like still? Do you have some lingering anxiety about certain dangers of animal products as we know it from vegan teachings? Or did you learn sufficiently enough to be completely calm and comfortable consuming animal products now?
I have zero concerns about eating animal products because I understand how the body self-regulates. I know the acid alkaline, the pH balance via the breath, the kidneys, and the dietary intake has very little effect on that. Also, there's so many studies that prove, that low cholesterol, for instance, increases or cause mortality, and that cholesterol is not affected by diet. It's actually a reaction to inflammation in the body. So
Yeah,
it's actually coming to repair cells, renew cells. So it's a good thing. It's when it's you're eating a lot of these products that oxidize. I don't really do that, so I'm not, and I exercise, so in a natural way, so I don't have any health concerns at all.
that's very nice. With cholesterol too, I learned that, vegans often tend to have high homocysteine because
Yeah,
of multiple deficiencies. And actually elevated homocysteine is one of the risk factors for body to crank up cholesterol. So
yeah,
because it requires because it damages the blood vessels, I guess damaged
yes,
tissues that are inflamed, they send the signals to bring cholesterol to start repairing. And then when you have some fatty acid imbalance, you start oxidizing that cholesterol. When you
yeah.
have a bunch of substances that are unwanted, unnatural for us, then yeah, that starts wreaking havoc, causing it all to turn into some unwanted things.
Yeah. And also, anyone can actually look this up. And because I mean, I actually work with sometimes I have clients that have, cognitive decline or like vascular problems, that kind of thing. And it's another metabolic problem. And statistically, if you are vegan or vegetarian, you run a significant risk of stroke. And then you have the other people on the other side of the everything has a Goldilocks effect, everyone has to look at that U-shaped curve, whatever it is. And it's like people that are like carnivore and all they do is just eat meat. They are the ones that run the risk of the heart attacks. So you have the vegans and vegetarians stroke as their major risk problem, or, dementia, that kind of thing. And that is, as you say, a nutritional thing. So there are many, many concerns.
Yeah, yeah, it's good that you brought it up. I think it will strike some thought process in our audience. So, um, I guess you were exposed to many people following vegan diets. You had your own experience with vegan diet. Do you think it is possible to be healthy vegan long term? And if so, what would be that best dietary protocol for the longest longevity as a vegan? What form of vegan diet, in your opinion, would give the best outcomes long term, if there is any?
I think it's kind of possible because of the ancestral adaptive traits. Um, it really depends because most people utilize the fats for the eye and the skin health and everything else. Equatorial types, possibly, but the problem that you run into is that everything is carbohydrate in a vegan diet. It doesn't matter what type of vegan diet you're doing. And if they want to utilize, to post age 40, I think you're running into a brick wall slowly, depending. If you're a slightly overweight vegan, you're going to hit that wall because you've got the protective fat pre-menopause. I'm not talking about the stomach fat. I'm talking about, the hips, the protective fat, so that you're storing those female protective hormones for longer, which is going to offset, the aging and the other health problems that can happen when you're depleted of your hormones via, menopause. If you're a thinner type vegan, very athletic, in other words, that you're wearing out your body a lot faster, kind of thing, you're going to hit that wall quicker. But when you have people that basically, if you think about it, they mostly eat bread, carbs. They like fizzy drinks, carbs. They like fake food. They like lots of sugary things, processed things. Yeah, fruits and vegetables as well. So, I mean, even if you think about Satan, that's bread, basically. It's just bread in another form. So sometimes you can have bread with bread and then more bread. And so what it is if you think about if you're drinking alcohol as well, if you're having excessive omega-6s, and in other words, you're really caning the polyunsaturated fatty acids big time, which vegans do. And as we know, excessive PUFA consumption slows down the metabolism, increases aging, it oxidizes the fats in your arteries. So I think what it is you're running the risk of huge metabolic problems. And metabolic problems can be a whole cascade of things. It can be added cancer risk. It can be because basically what vegans tend to forget is that protein, because what it is, if you can imagine you've got a seesaw, like a plus and a minus, if you can imagine you've got scales, right? And what it is we need to be balanced. We need to be somewhere in the middle. So if you think about carbs as the fuel, you can run fast. You're just eating loads of sugar, basically, because that's what carbs are. But then you've got a deficit on the other side, which is the protective fats and the proteins. The proteins is what happens is, you repair your muscle tissue. It's basically the building, the bricks and mortar of your human body. And as you get past 40, that bricks and mortar starts, deteriorating and breaking down. So you can't fix that with sugar, unfortunately. You need the proteins and the fats to fix that. You can't plaster up the big crack that's forming with a big bag of sugar, which is your bread and Satan and everything else. You can only fix that crack up with adequate protein. And what a lot of these vegans are doing is that they are filling up on protein powders, which are synthetically made. I mean, isolated pea protein for one of them, or soy protein. And if you've read the book, The Whole Soy Story, you really don't want to be putting that into your body. Not, there is no way on this God's green earth that's gonna do you any favors whatsoever. Because your body can't utilize it because it's highly, highly processed. This is why meat should be kept a little bit raw in the middle, blah, blah, blah. It's because denatured proteins are a thing. They are a real thing.
They oxidize, their bioavailability decreases, thermal treatment decreases bioavailability of amino acids. So, plus, yeah, all anti-nutrient factors that are there too. Carbohydrate matrix, everything can inhibit their bioavailability ultimately. And then you mentioned the value of proteins. People forget that sometimes they will be like, okay, glucose turns into ATP, it turns into energy.
Yeah,
And the thing is that to convert glucose into ATP, you need periodic table of things to
yes,
participate. You
yeah, I
cannot
know.
just, it's not that you just pour glucose in the glass, shake it up, and turns into ATP. It doesn't work like that. You need oxygen, you need iron, you need functional red blood cells for that. And you need a lot of enzymes to switch the reactions on. Any protein synthesis reaction involves proteins, such as enzymes. And those enzymes, they activate the reactions, they guide the reactions to go where we want them to go. There are so many chemical reactions that require amino acids that we should
Yeah,
not overlook that. It's not just synthesis, it's not just building blocks, it's also everything that comes to support the chemical reactions in the body that relies on protein and different minerals as well, of course. So,
yeah. And it's not just the health aspect as well, it's the ethical aspect as well. I mean, no one in nature is going to eat that amount of peas in one sitting. They have to take away the fiber because otherwise people would have chronic gas. To make that isolated pea protein, they also have to remove all the anti-nutrients. Otherwise, you'd have a problem there. And as you know as well, most of the mainstay vegan food is full of anti-nutrients. So they're eating all these nuts and seeds with the phytic acid in them as well, so that you're having high IP6 in inositol levels, which dysregulates the vitamin D homeostasis in the body, and that's just basically being vegan. So if you're eating your nuts and seeds, basically you are saying goodbye to cancer protection. You are saying goodbye to the minerals for your bones, your teeth, and everything else because your zinc. And I mean, I don't understand how a vegan is going to have any bioavailable zinc from their diet. And we need that is one of the most important minerals that we need. And it's, so yeah, that's just one.
yeah. Yeah, and zinc participates in DNA synthesis too. So it is quite vital to supply enough. Any reaction relies on it too. Yeah, I'm glad that you brought it up. You named so many important resources and so many hints to look into. You like just like vessel of information. I'm very happy that you shared all of those things to look into.
Thank you.
So here I also want to ask, as a person who is familiar with raw vegan and fruitarian scene,
Mhm.
So, how did your view on raw veganism, raw vegan culture, especially how it's portrayed in the media, changed after you have quit? Because the movement still persists, it still exists. We have still have names that promote this way of eating and with associated spiritual beliefs. Um, how do
I
you
think it's
relate to that?
I think it's very worrying, to be honest. I think it's very worrying because these people have almost guru status. And I'm even seeing now, even because I think what it is in this community, there is like a pyramid of spirituality related to diet that is quite promoted. And the first one is obviously, you're a terrible, dirty meat eater. You have a really low vibration. Energetically, you're bad. And then you can go vegetarian, vegan, and then it's high raw, then it's fruitarian, then it's breatharian. And there are so many of these. I just live on prana, la la la, and I
Mhm.
haven't eaten. And then I actually did quite a deep dive into this the breatharian thing. I actually did a lot of research on that. And a lot of these people are eating in McDonald's and they've been caught out and they're charging people so much money. So they're kind of like charlatans that are exploiting very vulnerable people that are looking for a path of healing. And they're going to these people like, help me, I need a path of healing. I need someone to show me how to go. So I can see the visible deterioration in people that I still follow, put it that way. I can visually see it. And these people have huge, huge followings, like the eyes falling in, the bone structure on the face, getting very, very skinny, losing all the hair, all these things. I don't know. It's just, and it's coming across as there is so much denial and they are obviously undernourished. And these are the symptoms of malnourishment, nothing else, except that in the community, they are being seen as pure detox or whatever. And so I see it as a lot of gurus preying on the weak, the sick, and the vulnerable. Raw or fruitarian works in the short term because it breaks everything down. This is how you can rebuild. You break everything down. Sometimes you need to do that, don't you? If you want to rebuild a house, you've got to knock it down first. So I think in that respect, sometimes that works, but long term, it could be fatal. It could really be fatal. And I think that there should actually be some legislation. But unfortunately, because there is so much money involved and there is an agenda. I mean, I'm not sure what your viewpoint is. I mean, I do fall into the category of conspiracy theorist, and I'm not jabbed. I'm not any of these things. I'm
Same.
very aware of the New World Order and all of this kind of thing and the agenda that's underneath everything. So I think what it is they like to invert everything. So what it is they'll make something good. Like the ideology of being nice to animals and the climate and nature. I mean, that's all very good, isn't it? That they are nice people that want to do that. They're not horrible people. If you want to make a better life for animals, you want to improve nature, Mother Nature, and you want to stop suffering, that means you're a good person. So I think what it is this underlying organization or whatever it is that's behind all this is inverting that, and they're having a jolly good laugh, I think,
Mhm.
because basically what they're doing is they're causing severe malnourishment, but they're making coin at the same time because sickness drives profit. They're taking the farmer's land and then they're putting these awful mono. They're killing all of the butterflies, all the insects, all the rabbits, everything, and they're destroying the earth. The soil is dead. Sorry, I'm very
Mhm.
passionate about this.
No,
And
it's
and
good.
no one seems to see it. They're all going, but the climate, as they're gluing themselves to the paper. I'm thinking like, I don't think there's been fossil fuel forever. There always will be. Nature's just decaying
Mhm.
stuff, making fossil fuel. That decay to make the fossil fuel will not end. And in actual fact, there's areas of the planet that are regreening because of the CO2. And you know what I mean? I believe in the Gaia, the Gaia theory that it kind of just homeostasis happens if you leave stuff alone. It just kind of balances and sorts itself out. And the more you interfere, the worse you make it, kind of thing. But anyway, sorry, I went off tangent.
No, actually, you kind of covered the next question.
Oh,
As so, you 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 so self-organized to actually cover two chapters in one. Yeah, I feel you on that. Yeah, that's. I started being more, I guess, started understand the what happens behind the scenes in that raw vegan spiritualism and stuff after I quit, because I myself I followed one specific person as a source of inspiration, and I still, like yesterday, I was telling to my man that, I still cannot believe that he could be doing that for just profit while deceiving people. I just
yeah.
can't believe that. I believe, I want to believe that he's of good character. I just can't believe that. But
I
yeah, it's
believe if
like,
someone is selling you products for your health, uh, there is something wrong because I don't believe that products solve problems. And I think
precisely.
that they're creating customers via fake fears. Big pharma is medicine and supplements, fake processed foods. They all come under the same umbrella, which is a destruction of health. And the other one, the spiritual aspect of it, that's been around since the Roman times. They call it quietism, where they kind of weaken the people by through ignorance, basically. And I think this is what's happening, that they're looking for the light and they're actually not getting it.
Mhm. Yeah, because I mean, it buries people in guilt and like desire to, I don't know, better themselves, and then they go into the trap of again detoxing for some spiritual cause, and then they start juxtaposing their terrestrial physical body and their spiritual life, and it's like always this unachievable perfection, unachievable,
Yeah,
unattainable spiritual excellence that you're seeking through food, and that I think keeps people in the loop. It keeps them detoxing, keeps them going, even
yeah,
against their health and common sense. Because how can you stop your ascension? How can you stop your spiritual excellence? Are you that weak? Or do
yeah.
you not want ticket to heaven, basically? So it's a huge trap, yeah. And I don't know, but
I
at the same
mean,
time, sorry.
all right. No, I was just going to say that there always needs to be balance and there will always be an equal dark side to everything. And that's just the way it needs to be. You can't have this, we're all light beings, we all love each other, and everybody's nice and no one hurts each other. They'll be putting lions in cages and so that they don't hurt things. I mean, where does it end? They're gonna individually cut each blade of grass and I mean, it's impossible. It's just not, it's that's not nature. Nature is cruel, nature is suffering, nature is joy. It's like whatever you've ever wished or dreamt for, in this life, like you might have dreamt for the most perfect job in the world, right? And then all of a sudden someone will bring you and they go, hey, this is the job you've always wanted and I've got it for you. There will always be something amazing about it, but there will also be a price, a dark side to it as well that you're probably not aware of initially. Like you think it's all perfect, but it never will be. There will always be a compensatory factor. And I think that is in everything in life, not just diet, not just, it's like in the molecules inside of, isn't it? The atoms, it's the positive and the negative and the magnetism that's going all the time, which is like the dark and the light, isn't it? Dun, dun, dun. We
Mm-hmm.
got to have both of
Hmm.
us.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And actually, I see your tree. The tree is a perfect example. And I think a lot of the spiritual teachings, when you go in depth of them, they teach you to embrace the dark side as well, to find out the darkness in you. And because that's something that grounds you, that's something that saves you from pride, it saves you from sense of false security, perhaps, that that saves you from, um, I guess, being thinking that you've made it, because that
I
stops your
think I
development. So,
think that is the highest level of ignorance. Is there's I can't remember who said it, whether it was Goethe, I don't know, but it was this phrase, and it's my favorite one. It's like, I met a man who was so stupid he thought he knew everything.
mhm. Yeah.
That's why you have to keep learning and going, wow, I'm just going to keep learning. And then you realize the more you learn, the less you know. It's like a really strange thing. So you can never get, it's like an abyss that you'll never get to the end of.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. At the same time, that's what makes life so interesting and always enriching. There's always something to look forward to. Imagine if we had nothing else to learn. How
Mm,
long would our
amazing.
how long would our joy of understanding that we know it all last? How much would it give us some dopamine? So it's
Yeah.
always swaying between not even suffering perhaps, but effort, some
Mm,
form of pushing the boundaries, I guess. So
yeah.
yeah, it's much deeper than the diet. I think with veganism in general, there is this aspect of not accepting that side of the world, as you're saying. And I maybe now only understood fully what you meant by seeing the 50%, because that's metaphorically also translates. So
Mm,
you have to accept the full spectrum of worldly phenomena in order to be a complete person and lead a complete life. So it's a very interesting take on all that. So I guess I have the last question for you. In your
okay.
opinion, what could each human do to contribute positively to the state of the world?
I guess to know themselves, to eat intuitively, eat local, seasonal, and fresh, eat real food, avoid anything that's been processed, refined. I think 100 years ago, when they did the big agricultural revolution, where they, um, oh, what is the word? Industrialized farming. That's the word. I think we lost a lot when they industrialized farming, and we lost our connection to nature. And I think about this a lot. Both my grandparents, their level of knowledge, they knew all the names of the stars, all the names of the wild plants and what they did, and they would go herb picking, and they knew that they had respect for the, even though they ate the animals, they had respect for the animals. They were kept in a good way. There was a kind of a way of living which was connected to the earth, kind of thing. I guess don't judge others, stay in balance. I don't believe that 80-10-10 or keto is the answer. I believe we're just going, and don't just think, oh, my way is the only way, and having such blinkered thinking, and just stay away from synthetic pharma, nutrition, and drugs.
Resonates. It resonates with me. And yeah, going back to going learning about nature, going back to it would definitely enrich people's life. If we could learn from our older generations while we have time. Thank you so much for um taking giving me your time, and for participating in the interview and in the survey. It was a really comprehensive conversation, and you provided so much valuable information and also some further reading, some bibliography for people to look into. I'm really, really grateful that it was possible for us to talk today. And I think people will have a lot to learn from our today's conversation. So thank you, Tanya, so much.
Thank you, also, Anastasia. It was a wonderful pleasure to meet you.
Likewise, and I was very, very happy to meet you as well and talk to you.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.